I get mean when you mess with my green.
Mhm.
Jewish people and Italian people speak with their hands.
For sure.
We knew it was catching on because when I would walk down the street, people started to point their finger at me, and they weren't giving me the bird.
Right.
They were pointing this finger.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Chance Encounters. And today, our guest needs no introduction, but we're going to do one anyway. A legendary Pittsburgher, a legend in the law game. He's been doing it. He's retired now, but his law firm has been around since I have been born, which is over 30 years. And his iconic commercial, I'm sure you remember it from the 90s, early 2000s, and now it's transitioned to social media, and you can see his name all around the PNC ballpark. I am here with the one and only Edgar Snyder and his co-owner and partner, Rob Fisher. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Very happy to join you. Happy to be here with Rob, and I'm glad that I am mostly retired. I still do work once in a while, so I don't want to say that I'm fully retired. But it's nice of you to call me a legend. I think sometimes that I'm a legend in my own mind.
No,
not necessarily anywhere else.
In our minds as well. Trust and believe.
I believe you. I'll take that. But it's good to be here with Rob.
Yeah.
I am not an owner. I just I work for Rob and his partners, and they're my bosses now. And we'll have a chance to talk later. But
That's a good leader, Rob. Rob.
Yeah, he's a great mentor for me. And we certainly, still have him all through the ads and in our social media.
Or your presence is still felt in the hallways.
Well, thank you, Chance. Keep talking because you're making me feel better and better. And
no,
I'm joking with you.
Edgar, no, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time out. Like I said, I don't think you do many interviews, and you probably don't want to. You're probably enjoying life, but thank you for taking the time out.
You're welcome
to sit down. Let's get into it because I don't think people know too much about your background, so I just want to get right into it. Edgar, I feel wrong calling you just Edgar, but
you can. That's my name.
All right, Edgar. How did first? Where are you from? How many siblings?
Okay, I'll give you a little background.
Please.
I was born in Connersville, which is Fayette County.
Yep.
And I was born a long time ago, 84 years to be exact. But that's where I was born. When I was about 67 years old, I moved to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised in Squirrel Hill section of Pittsburgh. Went through all the public schools. Went on to Penn State University.
We are.
And we are, yes. And graduated from Penn State. And then I went to Pitt Law School. When I graduated law school, I worked for a law firm for a couple of years, and I became an assistant public defender.
Well, let me stop you really quick. What made you get into law in the first place?
Well, it's a great story. It's so funny that you're asking me this question. I was with friends last night, and the subject came up of how I ended up getting into law. My brother is a physician, a retired physician now.
Right.
But he was a doctor, and when you grew up in my family, they were so proud that they had a son who was a doctor.
Yeah.
Okay, my father was an immigrant from Russia, so I'm a first generation on my father's side, and they were very proud of my brother. He got into medical school, he graduated, he became a urologist, and when I was growing up, I wanted to please my parents.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to become a doctor, just like my brother, because my parents couldn't stop talking about their son who was a doctor.
Right.
So I went to Penn State, and I thought that I wanted to go into pre-med, and I took Chemistry 101, which is basic chemistry,
Right.
and I got a D as in David,
Yeah.
okay? And that was the end of my medical career. So the next thing that my mother, God bless her, at the time, she said to me, well, if you're not going to be a doctor, the only other thing that you could possibly do is be a lawyer.
Mm.
And I said, well, why would I be a good lawyer? And she said, you should become a lawyer because you could talk your way out of a paper bag.
Yeah.
And that was what I was good at, talking.
And that came from your debate background.
Well,
from
that came, but
high school.
that came later. But that was when I decided at that particular time that I had to pick something to do when I was in college, because people would say to me, "What do you want to do when you grow up?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, I'm going to become a lawyer," because I couldn't think of anything else now that I wasn't going to become a doctor. So that's kind of where it started.
Wow. Just trying to please your parents, competition with your brother, or maybe a silent competition with your brother.
I think that it was silent and sometimes not so silent. I also had a sister. I had an older sister and an older brother, and they, as I said, my sister also was a professional. She worked for Westinghouse at the time. So I grew up in that kind of a background.
Yeah.
But I'm a product of the '50s, and that was a very different time of life in this country.
For sure.
I don't mean to interject, but
Please.
now that you've said all this, it's hilarious. I was a biology major with a pre-med minor, and I was going to go to medical school, and I was so young, I didn't want to fill out the MCAT application. So I said, well, what else can I do? I was like, well, I'll just go to law school, because that was the next thing. We're not that different. And I didn't know that story. I didn't know. We are not much different. I have a
Chance
biology
encounters.
degree. Yeah.
Well, we are
Sorry.
different. You have a degree in biology. I almost failed out of Penn State by taking chemistry. So you obviously had more ability, but I think you made the right choice.
Yeah, me too. For sure.
Oh man! So you graduated from Penn State, and then
I went to Pitt Law School.
Pitt Law School.
And
okay.
when I graduated Pitt Law School, I went to work for a small law firm, and that didn't interest me a lot. I really wanted to be a trial lawyer because, as my mother said, speaking, I was good at speaking, and therefore I decided at that particular point that the only way get a lot of trial experience. Back in 1965, the public defender system started in the United States. It was a federal program that started, and the program was started in Pittsburgh, along with every other city. As a public defender, there was a Supreme Court case that said that people that were indigent had a right to be represented. Up till that time, if you were poor, you didn't have a right to have a lawyer if you were charged with a crime, and that was obviously a terrible situation to not be able to have a legal counsel. The public defender system started. I very much wanted to be. I applied for a job in the public defender's office, and I was one of the first that was chosen, not as a public defender, but as an assistant public defender. Now they have maybe 65, 80 lawyers. At the time, we had 4 doing all of the criminal work. But I got the experience I needed back at that time. And I spent 2 years doing nothing but being in court every day and trying cases, murder cases, so that that prepared me for the next part of my career.
Now, how did you transition into the next part of your career?
Well, the next part of my career, after that, I was a criminal lawyer for
Right.
17 years.
Okay.
I was not involved in doing what I was doing now, and in fact, we'll talk about, I'm sure, later. There was no advertising at that particular time, but this was back in the late 60s. I became a criminal. I was a criminal lawyer from doing public defender work, and then I went into private practice and primarily, I don't say everything because I had a night office at that time. I wanted to have my own law practice. So at the time, I was married to my wife, who lived in Duquesne, Pennsylvania, and her father knew somebody in Duquesne and let me hang out a shingle. And I hung out a shingle in a storefront.
Now, what's the shingle? Sorry, Mark.
I'm sorry. It's a shingle is a nameplate that goes up that says Attorney Edgar Snyder. I put it in a window outside of the steel mill, Duquesne Works U.S. Steel.
It's a perfect
And
place.
I put it out there, and I used to go to work at night out there.
Yeah.
I would get there at 9 p.m. when the shift changed.
Wow.
And I would sit actually in front of I would sit in the window with a light on and pretend like I was doing legal work, and I had a big thing, and people would come out and say, you a lawyer? Well, yeah, I had a sign that said I'm a lawyer. That was the shingle. And that's how
Wow.
I started getting practice. But I also had a criminal law background, and I was able to get clients who were in trouble.
Yeah, wait. So it's like I'm not trying to jump ahead, but it's fascinating. Like, so that's always kind of been in you, just the marketing ideas. Like, okay, I'm gonna get the shingle. I'm gonna
Never,
get the light. Pretend that I'm
never,
working.
never thought about it that way, Chance. But you're right. I it was a little bit of being an entrepreneur. Only
Mhm.
we didn't have the word entrepreneur back at that time.
Yeah.
But it was wanting to be in business for myself, wanting to figure out how to do this, and I guess I really did start marketing myself. But the way I marketed myself at that time was meeting people.
Right.
Okay, and that's what I did.
Yeah, that's fascinating to hear. So let me ask. So can you share any memorable moments from that time?
Yes,
Like,
yes, I will share one in very memorable moment. In 19, I guess it's 1969. Um, for the people that would listen here, probably none of them are old enough to remember, maybe, but not old enough to remember. But there was a notorious criminal who had murdered a police officer in Verona, Pennsylvania,
mm,
and his name was Stanley Haas. And Stanley Haas, uh, he shot a police officer in Verona during, I think, a robbery attempt. I don't remember what the crime was. And then he kidnapped a mother and daughter on the way, and he drove to Waterloo, Iowa. I remember this very, very well.
yeah,
Okay. And when he came back to Pittsburgh, he was already infamous as this notorious criminal
right.
who had done these terrible acts, not only murder, but kidnapped, and nobody knew what had happened to the mother and daughter. Okay. So it was a big, big story. I was a public defender at the time, and it was my responsibility to represent Stanley Haas when he
Whoa.
came back to town. And this was a big story in Pittsburgh when this happened. I was very, very frightened at the time to represent him because he was notorious and strong, and I didn't know he didn't hire me.
Yeah.
I was appointed as his lawyer. And I have a very memorable moment sitting in, at that time, the Allegheny County Jail.
Yep.
And they were going to bring him in and put him in a room with me by myself so that I could interview him. And I said, no way am I going to do. I don't know. He may not want to see me either.
Yeah, it might be his next victim.
I mean, I'm a very big, tough guy. Ha ha ha. But he was frightening to me, even though I was a lawyer. I didn't know whether he and I were going to get along or not.
Yeah.
So I made a guard sit in the room with me, and that was already a question. How could you have privacy and discuss something private?
Right.
That case went on, and I represented him in trial. The case lasted 2 weeks, and they asked for the death penalty. And they did. This was a death penalty case, and this was really, really good for my career. He got the death penalty. People were after that. People said, "Oh, we got to have him as our lawyer because we want to die too." So I'm joking. I did get the case reversed in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court because there were some errors made. It turned out he was found guilty
Right.
of this crime, and but that was a very famous case. So people knew who I was. I did a lot of interviews at the time on KDKA television and different television stations. And I was about 28 years old.
Wow.
But I got used to that type of atmosphere, talking in front of a camera, being able to discuss these things, not only trying a case. So that was a memorable event.
That's definitely
In fact, it's probably the most memorable event in my career was that first situation involving his representation.
Well, and this is not one of my questions, but how does it? I know you have to do a job, but how is that mentally that when you know when you know the person is 100% guilty, but you just have to? Is it the mindset of just finding holes and?
It's a good question, Chance, and the answer is, if you believe in the justice system, which I do, everybody is entitled to representation. you can plead not guilty, and you are allowed. I can know that you're guilty of a crime as long as I don't put you on the stand and let you perjure yourself. I can try the case and make them, the other side, the prosecution, the state who prosecutes, make them have to do their job. The question you just asked actually was the most asked question. How can you sleep if you represent somebody that you know, let's say, committed a homicide? Uh, I was just doing my job, although I must admit afterwards there were times where I said to myself, uh, is this a good thing? I did my job. I did exactly what I was supposed to do, and the person walked free.
Yeah.
And there had been occasions where people did commit other crimes, and then I felt pretty bad about it. But that was my job.
Well, did that lead into expanding into accidents and things like that?
No,
No.
it had nothing to do with it at all. The law changed. I was a criminal lawyer. I got married for a second time at that particular time to, she was my wife, Sandy was my wife, and the law changed in 1970, either 78 or 79. It became legal. It became under the code of conduct. You were never able to advertise. If I would have advertised as a lawyer before 1978 or 79, I would have lost my license to practice law. But the law changed in the United States Supreme Court in 78 or 79. It became, it's really not legal. It's not so much a legality as it became under the code of conduct of lawyers. They were now able to advertise their services. Until that time, so when I was a criminal lawyer, there was no advertising, and I did personal injury work. I handled people that were involved in accidents because I did everything. I mean, I was the jack of all trades, so to speak. But when the law changed, and I happened to get remarried during that period of time in 1980, 81, and my ex-wife was doing marketing for dentists and other professionals. This was just when professionals were starting to advertise themselves. Okay, I know today it's hard to believe because advertising is everywhere. Okay, but that's when it changed. But it had nothing to do with the first career at all.
And actually, Edgar, that leads into kind of my next question when we talk about advertising.
Sure.
And it takes me back to, like I said, if you were born in the 1900s in Pittsburgh, we know your commercials. So, like, how did your iconic commercial and your quote, we don't take, there's never a fee unless we get money for you, and you pointing at the camera, how did that all come about?
Let me just back up, if I may, a few steps. When advertising became permissible, and by the way, it may be interesting because people may not know why. Why did the Supreme Court change the law? Advertising actually became professionally, you were able to do this for a very important reason that most people don't know because it was over 40, 45 years ago. But if you were in an accident and you needed a lawyer, most people in America did not know that lawyers like myself and Rob, who handled accident cases, took these cases on a contingent fee. In other words, if we didn't win, we didn't get paid.
Right.
The public did not know this. And people who were in the poverty line, they were being denied lawyers, not because they weren't allowed, but because they didn't have money. They thought they were not able to have representation. This is not a criminal case. This is a civil matter.
Yeah.
The United States Supreme Court said, if you don't allow advertising for lawyers, it denies a part of the public who don't know that they can get help. Today, we have lawyer referral services. There's all types of things that you can do. But back then, that wasn't known. So the United States Supreme Court said in a decision, Advertising should be allowed because otherwise the public doesn't know what they have a right to get and that they don't necessarily have to have money
Wow.
to pay for a lawyer. Knowing that, in 1982, I decided to go into advertising. I didn't advertise on TV in the beginning.
Mhm.
In the beginning, we put in, they're called tombstone ads. Tombstone ads is a little block ad. It was in the Pittsburgh Press, which is no longer a paper in Pittsburgh. We put an ad in, and it wasn't for an injury case. It was for drunk driving.
Okay.
The laws in Pennsylvania and throughout the United States changed back in 82, 83. It used to be what they called, when you were charged with drunk driving, if somebody wasn't killed in an accident, it was handled as a summary offense in a magistrate's office. And you could take these cases and nothing serious would happen. Because people were realizing at that time that drunk driving was a horrible situation and people were getting badly injured and people were drinking, they changed the laws, and now a person who was charged with drunk driving, if it involved a serious injury or death to somebody, they could end up, it was a criminal case, and it was now becoming a misdemeanor and a felony, and it was no longer handled at the summary events in magistrate's office. It went to court. All of a sudden, people who were charged with drunk driving, they didn't know what to do. I, at the same time, started to advertise and put an ad in the newspaper that said, "Know your rights." Within 1 year of this little ad, I had the largest drunk driving practice in the city of Pittsburgh, just from this little ad. And what my ex-wife and I said was, wow, is this powerful?
Yeah.
I mean, if you could put a little ad in the newspaper like this. I also knew that it was wonderful that it worked. But if I saw myself as doing nothing but drunk driving cases for the rest of my career, I wanted to become a doctor. Ha ha ha. That was out. But what I'm saying is, it's that experience. So we then started to put in personal injury ads. If you're injured in an accident, to see if that worked. And that worked, and my people started to call. So we decided to put it in newspapers. And before I advertised on television, I went in about 27 newspapers in Western Pennsylvania, and we were getting lots of business. And I had formed this law firm. And in fact, the first person I hired, whose name is Cindy Donnell, later became a partner in the law firm. And she and I did this. And what we learned how to do from these drunk driving cases, we started to win them, and I started to get a reputation because we figured out how to challenge breathalyzer tests.
Okay.
These breathalyzer machines were then, they came into being when drunk driving changed. They never gave you a test for anything because it wasn't a serious offense.
Right.
When that law changed, but that's how advertising started. We then started to advertise in the newspapers, and we saw, my God, this thing is so powerful that you could just put these little ads in. And by that time already, lawyers in America, certainly wasn't one of the first to advertise on television, maybe one of the first in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
There may have been people before because there were some lawyers that were putting on ads all over the country at that particular time.
Yeah.
And we saw this, and that's how so during that period of time, we started to get educated. We started to learn how to advertise, went to seminars, and my ex-wife had a background in marketing, and that's how this whole thing started.
When you think about it, it's not much different than the public defender issue, whereas marketing to people is showing them, hey, if you don't know a lawyer, we're lawyers and we'll help you, and here's the rules of how we can help you, right? Like, in other words, like,
exactly right.
You don't need to come up with a bunch of money if you're hurt in an accident. Just, we'll help you, and if we win, then you'll pay us with the settlement proceeds.
You're exactly right, Rob. It's very
similar.
Yep.
It's a very similar concept. And for the record, even today, now the goal is to help everybody, but we still try to make sure people realize if you don't know a lawyer, we'll help you. And if, by
Right.
the way, if you're calling about something we don't do, we'll find a lawyer that does do it because people need access to help. And
Exactly.
if they don't know lawyers, then they have to have somewhere to call. It's just a critical component to educate people. Like, Chance, you know us. So something happens, you should call us on the phone. But if you
Exact-
didn't know a lawyer, then you'd have to go into the market, which is why we still market today.
Wow.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And to that, like in my mind, you were the only lawyer marketing besides, I'm sure you remember, but like I remember it was you and then lawyers who would have like cars on fire behind
Well,
them. And
that was me too.
He did that. He did that ad.
Oh well,
Yeah.
those crazy lawyers. Yes, that was me too.
But
but it
Red
was
Green.
wonderful. It
We
was,
dropped cars out of the sky. I mean,
Yeah.
look, when we first started to advertise, the question was, how do you get known aside from putting an ad? I mean, ads were pretty dull.
yeah.
And my ex-wife said, well, we got to do things dramatic in the beginning, and we decided very early on in our advertising to go and film in a junkyard.
Mm.
And we bought junk cars. We hired cranes. We put them up on a crane. We built a balsa wood desk.
Yeah.
We put it out 15 feet, but we were able to have a camera film it. It looks like it was sitting. And I used to say, I used to stand up and say, if you're in an accident, bring your problem to us, and the car would drop out of the sky on my desk. I
That's awesome.
don't think today we would be doing those ads, Rob, but
We would not.
but I can tell you that
Absolutely not.
they did work. Probably still would, but they
sure,
did
would
they
still
did work back at that time. And just so you understand, the biggest problem that we ever faced in advertising in the beginning, because this is important, the public doesn't care what you advertise. If they like your product, they'll buy it, whatever. I don't mean lawyer stuff, anything. But the lawyers, the profession,
Mhm.
thought this was absolutely unprofessional. And I was considered a pariah
Mm.
in my profession. Lawyers said, you're an ambulance chaser. You're like a used car salesman. This was the way people talked back at that time.
Mhm.
And the only ones who ever really hated legal advertising was the lawyers. But do you know why? Why do you think those lawyers hated us?
Well, they couldn't compete with the advertising.
Right.
They-
There's an old expression. I get mean when you mess with my green.
Mhm. Them pockets start getting a little
Yeah.
light.
Well,
Yeah.
I affected the lawyers who did this kind of work. They used to get referrals from other lawyers. And when lawyers started to advertise like myself all over the country,
Yeah.
all of a sudden lawyers who got this kind of work, they fought back. They really fought back against this advertising. And that was a battle for many, many years to be recognized professionally, not by the public.
Yeah.
The public always responded to those ads for myself and other people.
Well, did you when you were getting the criticism and hate from did you recognize it as, did it bother you, or did you recognize it as, oh, this is working? Or like, was it both?
Chance, you're asking great questions. And that the reason it's a great question was it didn't bother me. I hoped that they would never think that it was what I was doing was professional, because I had it all to myself,
Mm.
or mostly all to myself. There were other lawyers, but but eventually lawyers said, why is he the only one doing this on television all over? And by the way, I didn't open up the office first in Pittsburgh. I tried this in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. I'd never been to Johnstown, but we put an ad on WJAC. We still advertise on WJAC in Johnstown.
Wow.
We put an ad on, and we talked about if you're in an accident. And I immediately got people as accidents. And I opened up a storefront, and I didn't even know where Johnstown was. And then we didn't have GPS. I had to get a map and figure out where I would opened up an office.
Rough times.
But this is what it was like, and professionally, it was not considered to be professional. You were at the low spectrum. Lawyers were not respected to begin with. Lawyers always have had trouble with an image.
Mhm.
You know, there's an image about lawyers. And then there were
So-
lawyers, and then there were the Edgar Snyders, okay? And
That's awesome.
I just used to have an expression. It may not sound good today, but we were kind of laughing on our way to the bank.
Yeah, and it's the truth.
Well, that's the truth.
Well, we still fight the battle of lawyers. I mean, nobody likes lawyers till they need one, and then they're like, "Well, now I like lawyers all of a sudden." That's part of it. I think. I know you guys are going to get into the brand and the power of the brand, but the arrogance and ego of these other lawyers during the 80s that they wouldn't jump into this arena is a very big reason why the brand grew so much. Because to your point, you know, Chance, you and I are the same. We grew up listening to those commercials, you know, after The Price is Right or during The Price is Right. And that's all we knew because he was the only one doing it. And, you know, their selfishness over money really only hurt the public, right? People need to know that they can get help. That's why the brand grew, because there wasn't anybody out there saying, "Well, I should be doing this too."
Yep.
And I think that was a big jump for the Edgar Snyder image.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right.
Well,
I mean, that's true.
where did I want to
Sure.
but where did why the point? Where
I'd
did
like
that come
to tell
into
you
play?
that I'm a marketing genius, but the truth of the matter is, you're going to laugh when you hear this, but Jewish people and Italian people speak with their hands.
For sure.
And I started
I'm
talking
guilty
about,
too.
you know, I'll get money for you. And I wasn't thinking that this was going to be a tagline. I just was pointing like, I'll get money for you to the TV set. And people responded that it felt like I was talking to them.
Wow. Yeah.
And I wasn't, my ex-wife was not a marketing genius. I was not a marketing genius. We were smart enough to realize that tagline caught on with the public. And we knew it was catching on because when I would walk down the street, people started to point their finger at me, and they weren't giving me the bird.
Right.
They were pointing this finger,
You're like,
and they were telling. You're right, and they were telling me that it worked, and they were laughing. But it had a humor to it, but it also became symbolic to the fact that you're entitled to a lawyer, you can have a lawyer. And when you pointed and that, so it started as just a gesture, and it became the line that we still use today.
So when I took over the marketing, Edgar, one of his ideas was go back and look at all the ads, right? So I went back through hundreds of ads, and the two most powerful things that stick out, well, I guess it'd be three, are the point, right? The catchphrase is never fee unless we get money for you. And quite honestly, and I don't know if you remember this, but it's built into my brain. During all of his commercials in the 80s and I guess the 90s for us, there'd be a pause where instead of hearing Edgar's voice, you'd hear this deep, baritone, or 391 to 101, and it would change. It would make you, if you were so used to seeing Edgar on TV that you weren't paying attention, the minute you'd hear the change in voice and the phone number, you would automatically turn your head, or it would be built into your brain. And those things really catapulted the phone number, the image, the point. I think that's what grew the brand. And by the way, the catchphrase also tells everybody everything they need to know about personal injury, which is, you don't need money to get a lawyer. You actually don't need it. We can help you without it. So 8 words or whatever it is catapults the whole entire industry.
Rob is right. And for years, I could walk down the street and people would go 391-2101. Okay. Now this was before we had multiple area codes.
Right.
Pittsburgh was 412. Later they came in 81. We were advertising different area codes, and we didn't have the right to use that. We didn't have to say 412. All we said was 391-2101.
Yep.
And during that period of time, so he's right. The telephone number, the tagline, the point, they all became part of the brand, but it was not, it wasn't burned into people's minds. In our mind, that wasn't. But
Right.
what happened was, and I give total credit this to my ex-wife, Sandy.
Hmm.
She said, and I think Rob follows this today, but she said, you got to be everywhere. And at that time, it was easy. There was no such thing as social media.
At all.
There were only 3 TV stations, ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Mhm.
It actually was easy. Today, his job as marketing his job is much more difficult. But at the time, nobody was doing this, so that it was different. And it was easier because there was only 3 television
Right.
stations at that particular time. But it was easy to say 391-2101 and do these things. And it was pretty simple. When we look back at our marketing efforts, we think today, boy, that was really good. But a lot of things happen, not a tagline for you, but by chance.
Hey, Chance
Okay?
Encounters.
Well, I'm giving you a little publicity.
Hey,
too.
much love.
But that's how it happened. I mean, it was really was that was a situation.
Yeah, well, it lives rent free in my head since childhood. Like even you think at times in life where you might be talking to a friend and then money comes up, and like it's never a fee. You might just say it to your friend or just in common conversation. That's how much it's like.
Well, today
ingrained.
I can't go almost anywhere where
Oh.
people don't say that to me, and of course that shows how powerful marketing can be.
Good marketing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with hindsight, good marketing. Okay,
Mhm.
but you know, sometimes the best things you do are, when I say accidental, yeah, we intended to advertise, but we didn't know what was going to be successful
Right.
until we tried it.
I think your gift is, and it goes back to you having the office outside of the steel mill and just having the light on, pretending that you're working. But you get into your gift is to get into people's psyches in a sense that what will connect with people, even though you might not even be thinking about it that way. But I feel like you've always had a connection with people's brains and like what they can kind of see. Because if I'm walking out of the steel mill or changing shifts and I see you with the light on, pen the pad, it was like, oh, I might need him one day or what,
That's exactly
Yeah.
what happened. There was no advertising. That was back in a time when how are you going to get business?
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, "Is that the only time you work at 9:00 at night?" So I said, "No, I have a day job. I have a day job too.
Yeah.
But you got to be where the people are.
Right.
Today we go where the people are,
which is everywhere.
but that's advertising, which is but at
Everywhere.
the time it wasn't.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was what you did. I mean, I have to mention something else that you wouldn't know.
Okay.
When we first started going on television, I bought a van. And what I did differently at that time was, instead of having people come to my office, we did television commercials that said, "We'll come to you."
Mhm.
Now, today, I'm not sure. I don't think that would play very well because people are used to not even coming to lawyers today, which is a different question and a different issue. But at the time, we had a van and we called it Law Van. And I went on television and did ads saying that I got out of my van, that we'll come to you. And I had a desk in there. It was one of these vans that you could do.
Wow.
I had a desk in there, and people would come, and I would go out into, let's say, Indiana County or Mercer County or any of the counties outside. And I would ask people to come in to my office into the van.
The van.
And we called it Law Van. And what we said at that time, which was humorous, but it caught on, was this was the poor man's answer to the company jet.
And it worked.
Maybe a good idea today.
Right?
And Rob, it would work today. What we also did, I'm giving Rob some good ideas for you. What we also did was we did ads back in the day of antique cars. We found out what people liked to see.
Mhm.
And we did all these ads in old cars. And it had nothing to do with liking Edgar Snyder, but
I like that car.
They loved those cars,
Yep.
and they used to. And then we got into motorcycles. That's how the whole thing happened. We
I
figured
remember the
out.
motorcycle commercials. Yeah, you
Yeah.
on the bike. Let me ask you this though. Let me before the transition. Like how has social media impacted that advertising transition? I know you guys are in the stadiums, but like as far as social media, Rob, I'm sure you can
Let
answer
Rob
this.
answer
Yeah,
the question because this is where this
yeah,
is where his abilities come into
yeah,
play.
It's I think it's tough for all advertisers in the world we live in now because, cable, well, except in Pittsburgh, cable TV is dead or dying,
right.
right? Everybody has the apps and they have the streaming services. So TV is more difficult.
Yeah,
Um, in the social world, you have, again, just general Google searching, which is probably the biggest thing we do in all of advertising is that if somebody's searching for a personal injury lawyer that happens to not know Edgar Snyder, we need to show up.
right.
Social media is it seems like the final frontier because everybody's on their phones 24/7,
Yeah,
right? So being able to catch them as they scroll or doom scroll, whatever way you want to say it,
Both.
and being able to, something we've learned over the last probably year is catching them. So if they want to click on a video, what you say in the first 3 seconds is all that matters,
Yeah,
and whether they'll watch the rest, and then how you deliver content, whether it's informative, whether it's funny, right? We struggle with. So this is a serious business, right?
yeah,
You're calling us because either you or somebody in your family is hurt
right.
or dead, like or catastrophically hurt or can't go back to work. Like, there's nothing funny about personal injury, but yet we have to have funny social media so people can identify with us, right? Like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
these are normal people because that's our main goal is we're just normal Pittsburghers that are just like you. We just happen to have a law degree.
Rob is exactly right. When we used to do those commercials where we dropped cars, we dropped motorcycles out of the sky too. The question was exactly what Rob just said. How do you treat a serious issue but get people's attention? If you came on television today and all you showed was gore, I
Right.
mean, people badly injured in accidents, people don't, it happens, but that's not what people necessarily respond to. So the trick in this business, as Rob knows very well, is how do you capture them, not offend them?
Right. And that's facts. And even like going back to the commercials when I was a kid, I didn't even know the process, but I just, oh, you don't have to pay. Like that was like it was you don't have to pay. You can
And that
pay later. Like it was
and
yeah.
we got that from the U.S. Supreme Court case. Okay,
Yep.
that was basically it, telling people who didn't have the resources
Mm.
that it didn't cost any money. And 40, let's see, 45 years later, we're still telling them the same thing.
Yep.
People still ask. I mean, it's still, again, our brand's everywhere. People know Edgar Snyder, but we still get well, does it cost me anything? Or what kind of law do you practice? Right. Until it happens to you,
Mhm.
you might know Edgar, but you might not know exactly what we do. So to your point, we have to say all these things to all these different people at all these different times to hopefully catch them when something really bad does happen to them so they can actually get the help they need. So I think, and to your point with social, it's so difficult. I struggle with it. Like I struggle with, well, we have the Pirate Parrot, the social ad where he's in our office and
Right.
like, it's funny, but nothing we do is funny. It's tough work,
It's hard.
people that are really hurt, but you have to be relatable. So, we're trying to keep the balance.
Yeah.
It's tough. Social makes it, TV is easier. It's just, here's an ad.
Yep.
Here's what we do. 30 seconds. Social could be, okay, I just watched your 15-second ad or your static. Now I'm going to go on your website. Now
Yeah.
I'm going to see all the stuff. Now I'm going to study your social media. Now I'm going to see how
Mhm.
goofy are you. And I don't know if people like that or don't. It's hard.
It's tough.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if
It's
people
a-
are like,
it's
we
a-
don't want lawyers
It's
to
a
be
balance.
goofy.
It's a balance.
And I think you've done it well. Like you said, we were talking before we got on, but like even just the signs around PNC Park still matter. You would think it's Edgar Snyder Park, but that's like who cares?
What
That's what you have
Rob
to do.
said is true, and that is our business is what we call a moving target. And until you need a lawyer and you're in an accident, you may see a name and it may mean something to you, but it doesn't register until the time comes where now you have to know this information. What should I do? What are my rights? I mean, how do I protect myself? How do I get an investigate? All of the different things that go on. So that even though we've been advertising, and I think we've been on every TV station at the time, on every day for
For sure.
forever, okay? Forever. So that, but how, it's a moving target.
Right.
If you're not in an accident and something's never happened to you, you may not be listening carefully.
Yeah.
You may know the name, you may know what they do, but it's only when that happens. So you have to, it's repetitive.
Right.
You got to keep reminding people. And today, social media is so important. So many young people don't watch television in the traditional way.
Yep.
They watch YouTube videos. There's just different ways that things go on. Facebook, all the different things that, Instagram. It doesn't matter what it is. And that's why his job is so much more difficult than mine was. Mine took the courage to do something different.
Right.
His job is more technically difficult than what I had to do.
And just to constantly think of content.
Well, how do we, right. The content issue is insane.
Yeah.
And then how do we tell people in a very short period of time? Used to be 30 seconds. Now it's, you might have 3, 5 that, hey, you might need us, or your family might need us, or your friend might need us. And you're not going to know what to do when this happens because you're not thinking about, look,
Right.
I was in my own accident 4 years ago, and been a personal injury lawyer for 15 years and a lawyer for 25. And I had to stop because the adrenaline's coming and be like, wait a minute. There was a witness wanting to leave. I got to grab the witness, right, who saw me get hit. And I got to make sure I call 911. I got to make sure my daughter's okay. Like, and I do this for a living. Like, you panic. It's adrenaline. It's crazy. And you have to explain this to people in a small window that things are going to go down and you're going to need real help immediately. And you better, and by the way, the other message is you better call somebody. Like, even if we hope you call us, right? This is our business, but better call a lawyer. You're out of your mind if you think you can do this yourself. You can't, because insurance companies, they have billions of dollars. There are flows on there telling you Progressive's great. You don't need that. Jake from State Farm is like, I'm cool. Don't get a lawyer.
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes says here's
I need Patrick Mahomes to say you should do Edgar Snyder. Then
they have more money and they can pay people more. That's what you're competing against is insurance companies telling you that they're cool when they're not.
Yeah.
Because you're hurt and they're like, we don't have any money for you. So it's tough. And social
I
is
never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
That's
that's who the real people always ask us, like, who's the comp? They're gonna bring up their names. Who are the competition? It's the insurance companies, because they have more money to spend, they have more social content, they have more content in general. That's whose ads you think about, and then they disarm you when actually something happens to you, and you're like, oh man, am I going to go after Jake from State Farm? Like that's what people think.
Well, listen, I know we got a little bit of time, so let me with the competition, like we talked about it earlier, but let's reiterate again. How do you differentiate your practice from others in the market?
I'll speak first, and then he will tell you real life. In the beginning of advertising, there was no differentiation. You didn't have to, because it wasn't prolific. It wasn't all over. Okay. Today, people can't envision what the world might have been like before you advertised. Okay. Now, advertising has been around forever, but not for lawyers. Okay. So that you get involved in that type of a situation where, if you don't have this type of ability to get a message out, today it's different, and Rob can address today. But our challenges were much different and much the same. Things were different then than they are now, and some things are still the same.
So I see competition as two different levels. There's local competition, which everybody will reference to me the twins or the
Oh, yeah.
people like that. You know, look, again, I want people when they're hurt to call a lawyer.
Number one.
That's the number one thing. You can't do this on your own. We think we're better than everybody else in terms of actually trying to help you and caring.
For sure.
Again, hard to show that. I don't know how you show people that we actually care. We try. But getting to a lawyer is important. So that's one side of it. I'm sure you see with the national stuff coming here, like these people are everywhere now. We have national firms. We're trying to show people, well, wait a minute. We're actually from Pittsburgh.
Right.
My dad, like we're running an ad now. My dad actually still works at Edgar Tonsman's steel mill. I actually grew up in, near a steel mill. My mom was actually a bookkeeper for a steel metal company. And this is all of our lawyers. Like one of my partners actually grew up in Uniontown, and his dad was also in a steel mill. We are trying to show people we're actually from here. We actually live here. We actually know the street you got hit on because one of our staff members was in the same accident. Right. That's the goal. Is like we're relatable Pittsburghers, and we're not out of towners. So that's the other side.
Yeah,
it's like
he's right.
That's a big key.
That's
too,
a
yeah.
big.
Yes.
That's a big issue today.
When you call us, you actually get an intaker that lives in one of the towns that you probably live in, and they sound like you. They're not from a different country or from
don't know yins.
No,
right. They
at all.
say yins and they don't say y'all, and it's because we're trying to show people like you get Pittsburgh people all the way through who know you, right?
Yeah.
I can guarantee that almost any accident that occurs, somebody in our firm either lives near or knows somebody that lives near where it happened. Like we just have people from all over the area.
And that's kind of like, honestly, that's like the biggest thing you need. Honestly, that's like the big differentiator right there. Like,
And we hope it is to a lot of people. Look, everybody's different. What appeals to one person may not appeal to somebody else. That's the world we live in.
Yeah.
But Rob is right. Our differentiation today is where we live and what we do, and we're people that are local. And does that matter? No, some people couldn't care less.
Right.
But some people do relate. Why do some people watch the same television station, the same person that's doing the news year in, year out? Because a lot of people like familiarity, and a lot of people respond to hometown.
Yeah, you start to trust them.
I think on a good side, competition raises awareness too, right?
For sure.
Again, it's if there's 100 people that are in a car accident, 40 of them will never call a lawyer, and of that, 30 of them will only deal with an insurance company. So in reality, we're all also fighting them and getting people to understand you can't just deal with Progressive and State Farm. You got to call a lawyer. So there is some awareness building that helps when the competition's here. It's not all just we're competing for chance to call which lawyer is he going to call. It's we need people to be aware of what else is out there to hurt them.
Awesome.
That makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. I got 3 more questions for you. I'm gonna get you guys out.
Go ahead.
So one of the questions is, what do you believe? Like in advice for people coming up, not even kids, but just adults in general. But what do you believe is the key to building relationships with clients? And like, even in my field, you have to build relationships, and I've seen it pay off. But how do you maintain?
I'll give you
those?
what I think is that answer. Many years ago, I used to go to Penn State University, and they used to ask me to come out and talk to people that might want to be lawyers.
Mhm.
Okay, what did they have to know, or what was important for them at that particular time? What skill levels and things of this nature? I used to advise, and I still advise people, life is about communication skills. Okay.
Mhm.
Rob and I, we do this for a living, have done it for a long time. We can sit here and do this, but it doesn't come naturally to most people. It's a skill set.
Right.
And I think it's part of it. It's the whole thing. You're a communicator. This is what you're doing for a living. I mean, this is what people respond to. This is how I think you said before for yourself, Chance. It's your personality. This is it's much of the same as far as I'm concerned. It's a communication skill.
You
want me to fire away? It depends on obviously who you're talking to, but I think it's caring. Like you have to care about whatever you're doing or the people you're trying to help. Like in terms of us, is like we care about people, right? From Edgar Snyder's perspective. If I was to give anybody advice on following their career path, it's find what you love and then go at it as hard as you can. I mean, it's it's hustle, it's intensity, it's passion. That's all. If you don't have any of that, you're in trouble.
Cooked.
Yeah, you're
Boring.
cooked. You're cooked.
You're bored.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're bored, and it's it,
And I believe you're just doing a disservice to humanity. Like if you're not searching, I mean, it takes people different times to find their passion, but if you're not kind of searching for it or paying attention to the signs, I feel like you're doing a disservice to all the rest of us. You know?
yes, I think that's a good point.
Yeah. Oh, so for the future. So what is the future of Edgar Snyder and Associates look like these next 10 years?
That's a loaded question,
Well,
Edgar.
I'll
Let's end the podcast.
no, as long as we're living in a society where people need services, whether it's physicians, lawyers, accountants, whatever it may be, I think the future for Edgar Snyder, as long as they continue to market and understand the public, and at this point, they know what to do. They know how to handle these type of cases. But I think I think the future in many ways is still the past.
Mm,
A lot of the things that were important then, 45 years ago, are still important now for the future. And I think as long as Edgar Snyder is pointing in the right direction, I
pointing
think
in the
that
right
yep.
direction. Oh.
Yeah, see, I can't stop. I mean, I just talk.
Hey.
But that's my viewpoint.
I'll take it back to the very beginning of this is people will always need advocates, right? For now, it's personal injury, which will always exist, but it might be different. Automated cars and AI and all this stuff happening. But the goal is to persevere. So when people need advocates, we will be there to help them in Pittsburgh. That's the future, right? And as it shifts, we will shift, right?
Right.
Now, look, I don't think automated vehicles are taking over Pittsburgh anytime soon. I don't even own
Not
an
at
electric
all.
vehicle. Right. So we're okay here.
Yeah.
I think other cities, people might be more panicking. Personal injury lawyers, like cars, gas cars aren't going anywhere.
No,
We're good.
not here.
But, the goal is just to be an advocate for people that need help and don't have the lawyer to help them.
I love it.
That's the goal.
And final question, Edgar. Kind of just a fun, lighthearted. I got a taste of it. I didn't know you liked the NBA. That's good to know that you're locked into the NBA finals.
I like it at this time of the year. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So what's one thing that a person will be so intrigued to find out about you? Like any hobbies or anything wild Edgar does outside of?
I don't think it's wild, but I'm a physical fitness buff.
Mm,
Okay. I swim, I bike, I lift weights. I do all these things. I think being a lawyer is stressful. And I think that you have to have a hobby or an avocation that allows you. When I was younger and I was Rob's age, I had young children and I was able to take out some of my stress
right.
with children. But I think that that's really, really important. And people, I'm not saying I'm an athlete.
No, but
Okay.
you look good. You can tell you stay in that
Well,
gym.
Chance, I think that you just made my day,
Yeah.
and now I'm happy I came here because you told me that. But seriously, I think this is all people don't know because they see me on these ads and they don't really know what makes you tick.
Right.
A lot of that is something that really makes me tick and that people may not know. I take this people say, what is your work now that you're retired or semi-retired? It's trying to stay active and it's trying to be involved and continue in that same fashion. So that might be something that people don't know.
No, and I totally agree. As as I get older, the gym is very necessary for just peace of mind.
Yeah.
Just go in there and get a sweat. and then everything else I feel like I can handle. So yeah, I totally agree.
So I was I was a runner for 37 years. People used to say, "Why do you isn't that what are you running?" I had to get the stress out somewhere. We live in a stressful age.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stress
and
going
especially
on.
what you especially
Yeah, I
what
mean,
you
and
guys do.
especially starting this thing out and doing all this stuff. But even when it was established business, I ran till I was afraid my knees might not make it. That I did something else. So
All right. Well, Edgar, Rob, thank you so much for joining us or joining me for Chance Encounters. I really appreciate it.
I think I speak for myself. I enjoyed meeting you, knowing you, and I enjoyed being here. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is pretty awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for Chance Encounters, and it wouldn't be right if we didn't leave it with this. There's never a fee unless we get money for you.
He pointed really good.
Love it.
Until next time.
That was a good. He
Love it.
ran the point correct.
I might have to be. I might have to be the new
You may wanna
spokesperson.
We're ready. We're ready to put
You may
it.
wanna
He's
use him
in.
a commercial.
We're going to.
I'll bring
yeah.
we'll bring the desk back.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll let him drop the cars.
Well, thank you. Until next time. Peace.